Okay, so before I get into the Intermountain Foray program, I want to do a brief plug for the Intermountain Herbarium. So this is the herbarium up in Logan, Utah, the USU Herbarium. Please come visit us. We, like all herbaria, are a collection of pressed plant specimens. We have about 300,000, and we're mostly concentrated on the Intermountain region, but not exclusively so. And I'm going to take advantage of the fact you've given me a microphone to do just a brief herbarium spiel in general, which is that if anyone has ever used the Utah flora, if anyone's ever used Intermountain flora, if anyone has ever basically done anything with plants ever, the information that you are learning has its origin probably directly in a herbarium. These are the resources that underlie, that provide the foundation for basically all botany. If you've used a scientific name, that name is attached to a specimen in a herbarium. That's what differentiates a scientific name from a common name. Herbaria are the foundational resource, and they're kind of a bit mystical, perhaps. I think they might be a bit intimidating for some people, but I would be quite confident that if you go to your local herbarium, they would love to show you around. They would love to have you more engaged, and I can certainly see that for sure for us at the Intermountain Herbarium up in Logan. Not only, of course, is it a foundational research tool, it's also an education tool. And so in Logan, we have, for example, a reference collection that contains one specimen of all the species found in Utah. So if you have a mystery plant, you can bring it up to us and compare with known specimens. If you're having trouble with the taxonomic key, for example, we have a collection of the rare species of Utah. It's not complete, but it's getting there. We have an extensive library. We have workspaces with microscopes, et cetera. So we really try to make ourselves useful to the botanical community in general. And so please, if you have any interest in any of the things that we have to offer or your local herbarium, give them a call, come on by. You're sure to get a warm welcome. All right, what you've asked me to talk about today, the Intermountain Botanical Foray. So this is a program that we run through the Intermountain Herbarium. It's in our second year, and it consists of a long weekend bio blitz to a particular area in the Intermountain region. And so we spend a bunch of time planning out. You can't see, do you see a cursor? Sort of. We spend a bunch of time planning out where we're going to go. We divide up the area into different zones and sort of have teams go to these different zones. If we're really lucky, we'll have a member give a slideshow. This is Andre telling us about, in this case, the rare plants of the West Desert. And then we will spend the long weekend collecting plants, coming back to central area to identify those plants. We will work on pressing those plants. It's a lot of fun. It's a real sort of a community excitement that happens here. People are working on identifications together, doing the pressing. And we'll keep building up our presses over the course of the long weekend. And not only are we doing specimen collecting, herbarium specimen collecting, and we provide the instruction on how to do this, we're also documenting the plant diversity of the area through photographs that go into iNaturalist. So I'm not sure how familiar folks are with iNaturalist, but here's an example of people making iNaturalist observations. Those end up in this massive online database that's now upwards of 300 million natural history observations. So this is in many ways a resource analogous to herbaria. It captures a little bit different information than a herbarium does.
What projects do you associate with these bioblitzes?
What projects do we associate the forays with? I'll show you that in just one second. So an individual iNaturalist observation is a great question. Looks kind of like this. You could upload one to a bunch of different photographs capturing different parts of that plant, or it doesn't have to be a plant. It's geo-referenced, so we know where it is. And then yourself or other members of the iNaturalist community can identify that plant. And it's a community-based system. And so if 2/3 of the identifications agree on a particular taxon, that becomes what is called the community ID or the community taxon. So in this particular case, Julia and I both agree on what this is, and so that becomes a research grade observation of that species. But if we disagreed, if I thought it was another primula, for example, this would just be recognized at the community level as primula. And there's always opportunities for further researchers, not researchers, further observers, further users to refine that identification. iNaturalist is perhaps most famous for an accompanying AI. And so even if you have no idea what the organism is, it will attempt to identify it for you. And it's actually remarkably good. But as with all tools of that sort, I would suggest you treat it as a starting point rather than conclusive opinion. But the AI is quite remarkable. So we make a lot of observations, and then they're gathered together in answer to your question into a Foray specific project. And so this is the one for 2023, and you can see that over the course of the Foray, this long weekend, we made almost 1,800 observations of almost 250 species. Those observations were subsequently identified by 137 members of the broader community. These could be people anywhere in the world. And 27 individuals contributed observations or participated in the Foray. And so all that information is gathered together. It's kind of fun. It gets in a bit of a competition, although there's no competition when Andre's there, because you can see most observations, Andre, most species, Andre. It's very hard to keep up with Andre in the field, as anyone who's been in the field with Andre will know. So that's the iNaturalist side of it. And then we have a big celebration. We have a big communal dinner at the end of the weekend, and this sort of emphasizes perhaps the most important part of these forays, in my opinion, which is as a community building tool. It's a chance for people who are interested in botany. You don't have to be expert botanists, Kathy. Everyone who comes on a foray always apologizes for themselves and says, "Oh, I'm not really a botanist." But it's amazing when you get a bunch of not really botanists together, how much botany can happen. So part of the goals here is to get an opportunity for like-minded people to share an enthusiasm about plants and have a nice time in a beautiful area in the Intermountain region. So I'll start off with a description of our first foray. This is our 2023 foray. This was in the Desert Experimental Range in the West Desert in Millard County. Very generously, this facility was offered by the Shrub Lab of the USDA. So we're very grateful to them for allowing us to use their facility. And if you take a look at this sort of architecture with these green trims, we'll see it again in a few minutes. But here's our crew. We're very proudly celebrating our finds at the end of the weekend. You can see our presses in front of us. And how did this go? Well, it was a spectacular area. We were lucky to do this foray after a wet winter. And so the desert was abloom. Here we are climbing up the Tunnel Springs Mountains in the northern part of the DER. Really amazing landscapes, lots of interesting plants. Here's Will Pierce getting very close and friendly with a Nopuntia, I think. As I said, the desert was abloom. There was Phoralcia grossularifolia everywhere in the lower portions and all kinds of interesting things up at a slightly higher elevation. Again, I'm happy to pause or not, just yell out. And if I make a mistake, by the way, I will also make that caveat about, well, I am a botanist, but I don't have much experience with the Intermountain flora. And so a lot of these plants on these forays are new for me, and I may well make a mistake today. So don't keep your eyes open. Don't necessarily take my word for it. We had some intrepid members who were willing to collect a cacti. So this is an Escobaria, I think, getting collected. There's a whole special curatorial approach or collection approach to collecting cacti specimens. Here's Andre relaxing after a hard day's work. There's our presses. Here we are. Anyone have any idea what that little object is in the middle of the screen? Owl pellet. You have very little to go by. It's not a fair question. It's not an owl pellet. This is a plant. This is actually a cactus part. Does anyone have any? That's a very poor hint. This is not a fair question. This is a tuber of Micropuntia. I don't know if people are familiar with Micropuntia, but it is a seasonally deciduous cactus. So it loses its petals in the winter and regrows from this underground tuber. And so someone actually dug up the tuber, and we were all, this is the first time any of us had seen this before. And so we were really excited about this Micropuntia tuber. And now I just want to show off some of the plants. I have it set so that the plant name is obscured so that if people were interested, we could do a guessing game, but that might not be fair. I don't know. People feel like yelling at me what they think this plant is. There's some nods. Are people too shy for this, or give me some, yell me out some possibilities for what this is. Physaria, Lescarella. Yeah, so I guess it's both. Lescarella is embedded in Physaria, so we call them all Physarias now. This is one of the true twin pods. It has the paired pods. This, I believe, is Chambersii. Very common on the Foray. How about this one? We must have some Eriogonum fans. Because no one yet. Andre's just smiling over there. All right, this is, I believe, is Villaflorum, the little grayish Eriogonum, I think it's called. A really cute little one. How about this one? This is a West Desert specialty. Cymopterus, that's right. This is Cymopterus basalticus. Really cool looking plant. Almost camouflaged in the gravel. How about this one? It's a cactus, yeah. Oh, is that here, Grussonia? Grussonia Bolchella. Now this is Micropuntia. So that's exactly the same taxon, different name. So this is the one that has those tubers. Grussonia or Micropuntia Pulchella. Nice. How about this thing? Can you guys see it all right? Maybe, I don't know what. I almost don't want to touch the lights. I'll mess something up if I try to touch the lights. Bottom. All right, well, let me see if that's too much. Okay, no, oh, this is just very gradual. Is that better? All right, I saw someone who wanted to volunteer a name for this. It's very cute, isn't it? It's a really cool plant, and coming from my limited perspective with the Intermountain flora, I was gobsmacked to learn that this is an Ipomopsis. I would not have thought it was an Ipomopsis, but apparently so. How about this one? This may be familiar to people with more of a horticultural bent. Polygala spinosa. We've now, the taxonomic botanists have messed it up. So it's now Rhinotropus subspinosa. But I think that's the same taxon. It's in the Polygalaceae, but turns out not as closely related to true Polygala as we had originally thought. And how about this one? This is another one when we first saw it, at least when I first saw it, I was at a complete loss. You have to sort of squint at this flower in the middle with a bit of imagination. It's another Rhinotropus. This is Rhinotropus intermontana, a bigger shrubby one with small flowers. It was really cool. All right, we'll give you guys an easier one. Yucca. I don't think so. I'm not going to put my neck out on it, but I believe this is Harmonii, the little one. It's not a very big plant. The photo might be a bit misleading. Yeah. I'm not gonna be too confident in this, but I'm pretty confident. This was the only one reported from the DER, so it's unlikely that it would have been something else. Bit hard to see. Maybe a bit too hard to see. Polemonium, a little Polemonium. And of course, had to include a fern. It was a bit of a challenge to find a fern in the West Desert, but on our last day, basically on our last outing, we were successful. So those of you who are interested, this is an apomictic triploid calanthoid fern adapted to living in deserts. This is Myriopterus gracilis. You may know it as Calanthes fei, one of our classic desert species. Really gorgeous fern. Yeah. It's not a mammillaria. Escobaria vivipara. This was the most popular plant of the foray. More people made an observation of Escobaria than of any other species. But we would be remiss not to look at some cute little grasses. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. Aeroneuron, really nice sort of rock habitat little grass. Or some endemics. This is known, I think, from the Tunnel Mountains and maybe the neighboring Frisco or Wawa Mountains. Trifolium friscanum. The photographer, by the way, is the name that's underneath. So these are all taken on the foray. West Millard County. I don't know how to describe that very well. I think I have a map. You'll see it in a minute. I'll show a map. This is the Tunnel Springs Mountains is the main range in the DER, but it's near the Wawas, just sort of west of the Wawas. And I guess the Wawas are one range west of the Friscos, I think. Now we're seeing the weakness in my geography. How about this one? This was of great excitement to the more cacti-oriented folks. I believe this is sclerocactus. And I don't know if it had been previously reported from the DER. Lots of really beautiful cacti. Chioceras. I think there's some debate over the exact taxonomy of this group. I've seen this called Mohavensis or Triglochidiatus. And just again, we can't have all of these, only these gaudy, showy plants. We gotta have some of these subtle beauties. Any ideas? It's got a triangular stem. It's very small. That's my fingernail. So it gives you an idea of how tiny this thing is. The whole plant is about this big. This is a carex, one of these dry habitat carexes. Well, so maybe is not entirely, it's not that self-deprecating here. This is a big mess. Oh yeah, I'm adding epithets here. This is in the Acrocystis group, so it's related to Carex rossii. And basically, in the Intermountain region, almost everything is called rossii. But apparently, it's not all rossii. There's a range of these guys, and this one perhaps is closest to Geophylla, or perhaps is something that isn't recognized yet. Yeah, those are the achenes. So those are the fruits. How what? Yeah, yeah. And only one or two keens per spikelet, so not very many. They're a bit hairy, which is one of the features to recognize as Acrocystis group. These are classic dryland sedges. This was a new find for Miller County, I think. Linum ruberulum. Yeah, a real beauty. One of the little flaxes. Will Pierce found this one. Another gorgeous grass. So that spiky looking thing that's tiny. Again, you can see that's I guess Eriogonum shockley behind it. It's a small little, very pokey cushion of grass. This is the very pleasant to say Blepharignacki, Blepharignacki kingii. Really cool plant. Getting into some, gratuitously showy asters. Nice. I heard it even before I pressed the button. Someone got that one, Rigoron compactus. How about this one? This is one of the sort of iconic species of the DER. I think I heard it. People are getting shy again. And Ciliopsis Nudicalis. Really beautiful. Astragalus calicosus. This is really common up on the sort of the foothills of the Tunnel Springs Mountains. And we found some really weird things. And so the one on the left appears to be, people are pretty confident it's a hybrid Eriogonum. And given the species that are around, it basically has to be an Eremita by Shockley hybrid. And I got in a big fight with iNaturalist about whether they would let me include that combination, and they would not. So right now it's in as like Eriogonum spa, but it's pretty clear that this is a Eremita by Shockley hybrid. And then Matt Berger found this cool Eriocoma hybrid. So when people might rightly feel that the common, what do we call it? Eriocoma hymenoides, Indian ricegrass maybe? The common, the iconic Utah state grass, Eriocoma hymenoides, looks really different than many of the other Eriocomas. And you might be somewhat grouchy about the fact that they're all treated as Eriocoma. But one of the reasons they are is not only are they closely related, but they hybridize to great profusion. Specifically, hymenoides hybridizes with lots of other species of Eriocoma to make these these sterile intermediates. So this is an Arida by hymenoides hybrid in Eriocoma. They did not. Well, that got even more of a fight. That got into more of a like a taxonomic principles fight because there is a name for a specific for Eriocoma occidentalis by Eriocoma hymenoides. That combination has a formal scientific name, which is Eriocoma X bloomeri. But that name only refers to that particular combination. However, all of these combinations look quite similar to each other. And so iNaturalist was insisting that I call this bloomeri, even though the parents are different. So objection. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm being excessively dramatic about it. What happens is iNaturalist is a community regulated enterprise, with the exception that there is an iNaturalist sort of staff group that make guidelines, and they include guidelines for what hybrids are allowed to be recognized. Basically, you can't just put a name into iNaturalist. It has to be already published. It has to follow a treatment that is generally accepted for that particular group. No, so they wouldn't let me put that name in because it violated their general guidelines. It wasn't, and I tried to say that their guidelines, perhaps should be modified, but there's however many million people involved in iNaturalist, and they weren't about to change the guidelines for me. But anyway, I was being a bit excessive, but there is a process. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's very easy to use as a user. The people who have curatorial authority, who can change the names that are available, for example, that requires a bit more training. And I'm not a curator, so I don't have that power. But the curators, by and large, have been really good at adhering to this sort of this general standard, which is what saves iNaturalist from being chaos. So I can't complain too much about the fact that they have rules. I just, think that maybe they could tweak them a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a way to tackle these for in the future if they are localized so that they're not the other hybrids that they're on?
That's a really great question. Is there a way to tag these so that people in the future could pull them apart? That's one of my main motivations for asking them to give them some sort of designation. There's not currently a flag that you can use to show that something is a hybrid, for example. So this is just put in as Eriogonum spa when we know a lot more about it than that. So it would be nice if there were a few more features like that. Yeah, I could write in the notes. I could make a comment about it. There's also like an annotation tool where I might be able to annotate it as being a hybrid, but it's not attached in the same way that most of our other data are associated. Most of the other identification data are associated. All right, and then we have this one. This is one of the I think most stunning plants of the DER. This was all over the place. Sphaeralsia cespitosa, another one of these West Desert endemics. And the other Sphaeralsia that was all over the place is the common Gracilarifolia. So quite different looking plants. And then we found one that looks like this. And only one of them. And I also got in a fight with iNaturalist, actually not with iNaturalist per se, but with a bunch of other botanists who are more conservative and perhaps more knowledgeable than I. who felt that this was perhaps within the range of variation of Gracilarifolia, but I'm personally, in my heart of hearts, think that this is a hybrid as well. Anyway, I'd be interested in other people's opinion. And if you have a strong opinion, you should go on iNaturalist and identify it for me. But I think that's also a hybrid in Sphaerelsia. Oh yeah, right. Oh yeah, I got photobombed by the lizard. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Are really known. Yeah, yeah, right. The Ariogonum, Ariocoma. These are groups in which hybrids are common. I don't know about Sphaerelsia. I think hybrids are common in Sphaerelsia as well, but I don't know much about it. And then of course we had to have a plant of the Foray. What was the single most impressive plant find? And in 2023, it was clear the plant of the Foray was Lewisia McGuire, a new record for Utah that Matt Berger and others found in the Tunnel Springs Mountains. So a really cool find. Really cute little plant. That's a couple inches in diameter, maybe 2 inches in diameter. Not big, but not microscopic either. The question is, what was the scale? Yeah, just growing in this gravel on these sort of ledges, these cliff ledges. The weather, how hot was it that day? We were lucky with the weather. It was beautiful. I can't remember exactly, but it was very comfortable. Oh, when was this? No, this was not in July. This was in the beginning of June. First week of June. So yeah, we got the bloom in peak. And just while we're on this photo, up in this corner, this might be that carex sneaking in here. So that's what that carex looks like. It's a very small, rigid carex growing in these dry, rocky environments. And we didn't just look up plants. We got distracted now and then by other things. And so here's a little horned lizard. Here's a wary jackrabbit. And in the evenings, a crew went out with a black light. And I don't know whether you would describe it as exciting or disconcerting, depending on how you feel about scorpions. But if you walk around the desert with a black light at night, you can find a lot of scorpions. It was pretty cool. And they glow. I don't know if people have done this, but they fluoresce under black light, and so they're easy to find. So that was 2023. It was a far greater success than I had ever hoped it would be. And so we were excited to do it again in 2024. And this year we went to Great Basin Station in Ephraim Canyon, so in the Wasatch Plateau. This is a station run by Snow College. It has its genesis with the Forest Service, same as the Desert Experimental Range. So you may recognize the architecture. Another fantastic place to base a foray out of. We were stoked to be there. Here's a sort of a description of what we started with. We were very lucky to have one of the faculty members from Snow College who knew the area really well sit down with us and map out all the areas that we should attempt to visit. And then we got at it. We started our days as a group and divided into teams to survey different portions of the area. Collected a lot of plants. Sylvia we didn't see any Elisma in the DER, so we're very different environment here. Here's Andre with his tricorder. So this is Andre has on his phone all the information you could ever possibly want to know about Utah plants. So if anyone has any questions, he'll be able to pop up a full description of what it is that you're looking at. So they're working on an ID here. Here we are at the end of, or near the end of our foray with full presses. But again, the scenery, the environment here was very different than the West Desert. We're up at high elevation in the Wasatch Plateau. In a whole variety of habitats. So a lot of sort of montane, meadowy habitats, but also these really interesting dry, rocky habitats. Beautiful hiking. Some groups did bigger hikes than others. That's one of the benefits of the forays. We can really divide us up into groups where the area they're visiting is suited to their interests. Amazing scenery. It was a spectacular spot. We even had a crew from Utah Public Radio come with us and do a segment. So if you Google, well, you probably have to Google Foray UPR, you can find the segment. They did a great job. I don't think of myself as being. I hate hearing myself in recording, and even hate more seeing myself. But I was able to listen to the segment without cringing. So I think they did an awesome job. And again, amazing blooms. It was an awesome spot. Some really extreme habitats like these limestone gravel, almost cliffs, these big knoll-like habitats that are full of interesting endemics, some of which I will show you in just a second. Some very steep climbs. Our final day, we went up to Heliotrope Mountain, which has quite the ambitious access. You got to climb up this hillside here, but then you're rewarded with this amazing sort of meadow community that goes up towards the mountain itself up here. A spectacular spot, and lots of good plants. So this is Townsendia. I think it's Montana, Townsendia, Montana. No one's arguing with me yet. I don't see. I believe that's what this is. This is a Pacra musiniensis, I think it is. I'm actually not sure what Castanea this is. Applegatia, that would make sense. That was one of the most common ones that we saw. All right. Should we try our quiz again? Oh yeah. Are you sure? I wonder if you might know it, or you might be being fooled. It's got 5 parted purple flowers. It's not an Orobanchaceae. It's not, no. I can see it looking like it because of the leaf color, among other things, and the way it's so compact, but this is in a different family entirely. 5 parted purple flowers bordering on blue. One of our few, well, one of relatively few families that has blue flowers. This is Gentianella. So this is a rock-dwelling gentian family plant, Gentianella tortuosa. Again, it's not very fair because you don't have great shots of the flowers here. So I don't claim to be fair with these photos. Oh, this one you can see already. This is one of the classics of the region, Silene petersonii, amazing displays. Will made this particular photo study of it by using a black sheet behind it. Here's one of those rock barren limestone gravel endemics. Not Jonesii. Are these not currently recognized? Yes, Scopulorum, Aquilegia scopulorum. Really beautiful plant. This one, again, unfair, but those are my fingers for scale. In my naiveness, I thought it was a lomatium. It's a Apiaceae, but it forms big patches, almost like a turf, of this little teeny plant. Does anyone know this one? Some people are tempted, I can tell. No one's going out on a limb. This is Oreoxys, relatively high elevation Apiaceae. Really cute plant. One of the highlights, this is a Heliotrope Mountain area endemic. Specialist Astragalus, this is Montii. I think it's found, I think so. It's found in Heliotrope and maybe 1 or 2 other peaks in the area. Amazing pods. It's a very small plant with these huge pods. Erigeron, this is Udermanii, which I think, again, is a fairly localized regional species. Here's this rare Pacra, musiniensis. I'm not sure about the range of it. Does anybody know? This one was on heliotrope. It was also in some of the other similar habitats nearby. It wasn't just on heliotrope, but it likes those rock gravel barrens. Yeah, heliotrope was a pretty amazing area. Here's our classic. Yeah, cool. Yeah, not looking very cerulean, but whatever. The white version of the blue. I think it's coloradensis or something. Is that right? The white color, the white variety of the blue columbine. Okay. Okay. Cool. That's an amazing plant. It's really, really showy. Very, very impressive plant. This is one I showed you already. Silene petersonii. We were lucky to get this in peak bloom, a very charismatic Silene. I'd be remiss if I didn't include at least one penstemon. I think we saw 7 species, I believe. Good luck with this one. This, I believe, is Radbergii. I don't believe someone else. Andre, I think, believes. Um, we had a bit of a penstemon IDing keying session on a few evenings in the foray to try to sort all these guys out. This is one of the, in my opinion, the iconic plants of the foray. We saw a lot of this. It was all over. And really, really beautiful little guy if you got close. A bit spiny. I could never get the name straight in my head. I have a block. Kentrophyta, that's right. Huge patches of it. It was very happy. Kathy's saying that's up here in Snowbird as well, but yeah, on the foray it was super abundant and in great bloom. Just had to put this guy in here because it was so cute and so incongruous. It was growing in the middle of this rock rubble, basically, where you think nothing could grow. You find these little plants poking up. It looks kind of like a Physaria, but the pods are not inflated as much, and I think they're triangular or quadrangular. Um, looks like an alien. This is Nokia, which I've seen growing in quite wet montane habitats. Very different from this habitat. Yeah. This is a mustard. Yeah, this is a little mustard related to Thalapsy of all things, the field pennycress, that weed. So Nokia is in that same group of mustards as Thalapsy is, even though it looks completely different. Um, and I was only very grudgingly, it had to be Fenlery, as I understand it, but it looks so different, at least in habitat, from the Fenlery I've seen growing up near Logan, for example. Apparently anther color is useful here. This is Polemonium pulchrimum, one of the lower sky pilots, not the big one, the foliosimum, that people might be more familiar with. Um, uh, I know. I don't want to make it too easy. All right, this one has leaves, but otherwise quite tricky. The leaves here look so much like Ivesea, and then suddenly it has these big purple or blue flowers coming up. Yes, Polemonium viscosum. So we saw 3 at least species of Polemonium on the foray. This was another iconic plant. When we found a lot of it, often growing in the melts beneath a snowbank that was in the shelter of an overhanging outcrop. I heard people say ranunculus. It's huge flowers, those really divided leaves. This is Adonis. Another, I guess not an endemic, but a plant that I was very pleased to see. I know it's hard when you get put on the spot to come up with names. I can't even remember that genus name, Synthrysis or something, Synthrysis. It's now, for better or for worse, known to be stuck in the middle of the genus Veronica. So all of those Synthrysises are Veronicas, and this is the Utah mousetail, Veronica utahensis, with those almost cordate leaves. Yeah. again, the photo doesn't do it full credit in terms of being able to see the flowers super closely. Andre had other close-ups where that would be much more visible, but in this shot, you can't quite see it. But this is a classic Veronica. It has Veronica seed pods. Yeah. This one threw a bunch of us Intermountain newbies for a loop. I was sure that this was an astragalus, which is a bit of a hint that it's not an astragalus. It's not an astragalus. It's an Oxytropis. Oxytropis aureophila. Really beautiful, light purple to pink flowers. Gorgeous pods. Beautiful plant. And then we have to have a plant of the foray. So first place, again, undisputed highlight of the foray was this little Botrychium. So this is a Eusporangiate fern. Botrychiums are among the weirdest of all plants. They have these obligate symbiotic relationships with fungi. They grow in bizarre places. They're very hard to find. And then sometimes when you find them, you'll find a bunch of species growing together. They're just extremely strange. And this is almost certainly Tunnux, based upon the opinions of several Botrychium authorities, of which I am not one, which may be a new record for Utah as well. CF means basically compare with. That means I'm pretty sure that this is Tunnux. Determining whether it's new for Utah will be a bit complicated. It's almost certainly been reported before, but misidentified as Neolunaria, a different species of Botrychium. So this is probably the first record of it, but I bet you if we go back and look through herbarium collections, we'll find other Tunnux records from Utah. Yeah, Botrychiums are like snipes. You go snipe hunting, go Botrychium hunting. I feel the same way. This is one of the first times I've seen Botrychium when I was not with somebody who specifically knew about Botrychium and was like showing it to me. It's a hard plant to find. Once we got the search image, we were able to find a bunch of it, but effectively what happened here is we were kneeling down to take a photograph of another plant, and Julia started to like make these incoherent gaspy noises and like pointed beside my right knee, and there was a Botrychium. But if I hadn't stopped for that particular photo of this other thing, we almost certainly would not have seen this. So this one's growing in dry limestone gravel. So again, another reason why it's not Neolunaria, this more broadly represented a Mesic alpine thing. Almost certainly Tunnux. Very different habitat. However, while this is the clear plant of the Foray 2024, there was a runner-up. And this was also by Julia. Julia found this cool little critter, which we're pretty sure Triglochyn palustris. So you may be familiar with the big Triglochyn that grows in more marshy, lower elevation habitats. Like I said, some Meridema, it can be knee-high at least. This is a teeny little one with very elongate floral structures, palustris, and we only ever saw the one of it. So really unusual, and obviously super unusual flowers. When she showed us this photo, showed the group this photo, we were flummoxed for a while. Triglochyn palustris, one of these very bizarre monocot families. And so those are the highlights I wanted to show you. I just want to sort of take a step back quickly and give a brief big picture of where we've been so far. So again, we've had 2 of them. I promised somebody a map. So here's the map. Here's the Nevada-Utah line. So the first foray was here in the DER, the Desert Experimental Range, which is, I guess, then west of Milford. And here we were up in the Ephraim Canyon and vicinity in the Wasatch Highlands, Wasatch Plateau for foray number 2. And you can see that over the course of our 2 forays, we made almost 4,000 observations. We collected almost 400 specimens as well. And our observations encompass some 600 species. When we get to identifying all the ones we got from this year, we have a bunch that this number will go up. We have a bunch of unidentified sedges and other things that are awaiting time at the scope. but we'll be over 600 species by the time Christmas rolls around, which I think is pretty remarkable for 2 outings, basically two weekends, and some really fantastic plants, independent of their actual numbers. We saw lots of really amazing stuff. Beautiful time, really good community. And so I'm excited about continuing this foray. We're going to make this an annual program. And so one thing that we would always appreciate is thoughts on where we should go next. We don't have a plan for our Foray 2025 yet. So if anyone knows a good spot within the Intermountain region, please let us know. We'll put it on our list. We definitely are looking for recommendations. And you should join us. Before I sign off, I want to thank again UMPS. So we were a very lucky recipient of one of the grant and aids this year, and that's one of the things that made this whole process possible. That Snow College facility wasn't free, and so we were very lucky to be able to be there, in large part because of the generous support of UMPS. The Shrub Lab for their support in 2023, Snow College for letting us into the facility and giving us a discount, and the photographers whose photographs I've been using today, some of which, like this one, are not credited. So thank you very much, and please come and join us. Email Julia or myself, and we'd love to have you on board our next foray. Thank you.